But there are all these other futures that existed prior to that, particularly indigenous futures around the world that have carried and nurtured humanity for thousands of years. And now we're in a moment where we can bring those stories back. We can bring back Afrofuturism that existed prior to Western Europe. We can bring back indigenous futures that existed prior to European exploration of the world. And so that's what I do with Afrofuturism, particularly when it comes to public policy in education, teaching young people how to speak indigenous languages all around the world. So they learn to think differently and not just in English or French or Dutch. And so that's what I do. The larger piece about Afrofuturism that is so powerful is that as a historian, I'm trained to understand what history was as an idea within Germany, particularly later within the United Kingdom, is that history, when it became professional, was really about kings, emperors, wars, to a lesser extent, the idea of a free society and the kind of mythology of Athens or Rome. That's all also constructed, but by the time we had gotten to 1920, the Eurocentrism had become so deep that it said there is no African history, that there is no Asian history or indigenous history. And so we lived through a century that we're now just fighting back against. And in the midst of that fight, in the late 1950s and early 1960s, because of civil rights struggle, Afrofuturism emerges as a seed that nurtures Samuel Delany, Octavia Butler, to begin to create in fiction the idea that we can see African people into the future, because previously science fiction did not project Black people into the future. And so it took 30 years of work in literature to challenge the assumptions grounded in a European history fiction, to then undo it and say, no, Black people are not just present now and in the past. There's actually a future of the African diaspora. And that's been the work that, for me, really became concrete by 2015 in the midst of the Black Lives Matter work. It really stood up and said, yes, not only are there Black people in the future, but we are integral. We are the ones who will make human freedom possible in the future because of the nature of our historical struggle. And so that, for me, is a long answer, but there's this piece of inventing Black history that then allows us to create an Afrofuturism that we celebrate now.
Excellent, excellent. What about you? Afrofuturism for yourself, and what about you?
Yeah, man. It's been a long day, dude. You know, but anyway, so I'm from Clarksdale, Mississippi, and you know, Afrofuturism with me started purely as a personal thing, as a result of the person who created the space, Haile Garima, who taught my oldest brother film. My oldest brother was one of the students in the film department back in the 70s. You know, I'm from Clarksdale, Mississippi, grew up across the street from the cotton field, that type of thing. But this guy would come home and he would tell us stuff that, you know, that no one was teaching us, that, oh my God, the Egyptians were Black, you know, that type of thing, you know. So I remember I had done, and I've said this before, but I've never really, I don't know if I ever said it in a previous interview, but my brother came home once from school, from Howard, went to Howard. And, you know, I was doing a character who was this elderly swordsman. He had two swords, right? And he's supposed to be this excellent swordsman, science fiction, and I called him the Master, right? And my brother lit into me. Are you aware of what you're doing? You have this white character who's a swordsman, and you call him the Master. Now, for me, I'm a Star Wars guy at that time. I was 10, 11, 12 years old, so I'm thinking Jedi Master, right? But it hit me so hard what he said that all of a sudden, everything I did became Black. Right. Everything. Right. And I've been in that gear for the last 57 years now. And it's colored everything that I've done since. So for me, Afrofuturism was, from a very, very specific point, showing people of color, people that look like me, people like folks in the audience, showing them in speculative and science fiction scenarios. And that's what I've done for years. Now, since Afrofuturism has kind of gone mainstream now, I'm happy to say I'm in the Afrofuturism show. We were there at the opening, which was a very emotional moment for me, to be acknowledged that I'm one of those pioneers that's been around for decades it's a pretty surreal and humbling thing. And then to be asked to come there by the Smithsonian to do that type of thing. And to also know that my books are out spreading that word, spreading what Afrofuturism is. Now, what's happened is because I've done that, it's made me have to expand my idea of what Afrofuturism is. It's not just black people in spaceships.
Right.
Now it extends more. There's a spiritual component to it. It can deal and access different mediums, fashion, film, comics, prose, dance, all these type of things. So as the definition, and because back in the day when I was doing it professionally, we just called it black sci-fi. Right. Mark Derry coined the term, and we of course took that term and did whatever the hell we wanted to with it. Right. So it's about trying to showcase black aesthetics within the comics medium or graphic novel medium, and do it in such a way where people can see the people like themselves in these speculative environments, whether it be something where, an infinitum, right. I'm tired of black folks dying on screen. I'm sick of it. Right. Sick of it. So I said when I did infinitum, I'm going to make a story where literally the main character is this black man and he cannot die. Right. And he lives 2 billion years. He won't die. Right. If you cut off his arm, it's eventually going to grow back. If he shoots himself in the head to try to commit suicide because he's tired of living, right. It takes about 1,000 years, but his head grows back. Right. Because I am sick of that. I'm sick of that. I'm sick of black men being maimed, giving some sort of righteous permission to generally white males to go out and be Dirty Harry. And I said, no, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to put my spaceships in there, my intergalactic warfare, my aliens. I'm going to do all that. But also, I had the opportunity to do something that touched my father. I could do a character like Maddie's Rocket, Maddie Waddy, where the main character is based on my great-grandmother. So doing this book here with Walter, who's a hip-hop scholar as well as, an economics professor, gave me the opportunity to kind of like go full circle, is to take the Afrofuturist modalities I've been using since I was young, but now obviously more mature, but able to apply it to music and graphic history. And so it's a full circle moment because I did a lot of music illustration early in my career, and now where I am doing this book that people seem to love it. Yes. And so that's what Afrofuturism is. I don't know if that's it.
No, that's it.
Let's just say it's a very powerful vision or idea, and it appears to be growing.
Excellent. So, and I do want to get to the book, obviously, but based on the responses you just gave, based on what's going on currently, for the folks that are listening, that are learning about Afrofuturism and so forth, it always comes back to how will this, if I embrace it, if I study it, how will this impact me? How will this change me? How will this improve our community? So we look at all that is happening politically, all that is happening in the realm of education, we're trying to wipe away and suppress various aspects of, especially African history. How does Afrofuturism, in your opinions, address this and help to combat it, if it does at all?
Oh, no, it transforms the battlefield completely. So when you look at some of the opponents of critical race theory or diversity, equity, inclusion, which are all basically attempting to curtail black freedom, all of this is a reaction to Barack and Michelle Obama. Right. This is all an attempt to suppress the way that black people have overcome adversity for the last 50 years. And despite enormous restrictions like the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration, what Afrofuturism does is change both our cultural and spiritual consciousness to use all of the tools at our disposal to overcome whatever adversity we might face. And this is not just true for people of the African diaspora. This is true for Europeans who have been conditioned to believe that they are somehow white. This is true for people when they're, I see this every day, folks from all across Asia, whether they're from Turkey or Iraq or Southeast Asia like India, Cambodia, they will believe that somehow they are all Asian and fundamentally alike, that a race is the kind of ethnic and cultural heritage that they bring with them through their families. And Afrofuturism breaks that racialization. It breaks this process that lets us dehumanize each other for the last 5 centuries. And so that's what I see. My particular skills come in 4 areas. It's history, education, media, and economics. And so I worked with William Darity at Duke on a book called The Black Reparations Project. And my chapter was just on housing. But it asked the question, how do you provide reparations in terms of housing? And so I lay out this entire blueprint of what the housing market looks like if it's based on African diaspora prior to European contact kinds of principles. If you look at indigenous traditions of housing, but just made it modern, made them exist in the 21st and 22nd century, how much more just and inclusive would our housing markets be? It wouldn't even be markets. They would, at minimum, be housing cooperatives. And so there's just a way of re-envisioning the way we think about the world that can't be contained by Donald Trump and his acolytes. That this piece of transforming how we operate every day, the most basic one I do is in my economics courses. Students come to me and like literally said to me, a student said to me last week in a course about the graphic history of hip hop, I asked them, how much money do you hope to earn in your best year? Your best year that you ever make money, how much money you will make? And this African American student said to me, I hope to make $39,000 in my best year.
That's, wow.
And this is a kid, like he's 7th, 8th, 9th grade, like he's not out in the world yet. He doesn't know how to scale up what his idea is. But I was like, no, given the way I'm going to teach you both the graphic history of hip hop and Afrofuturist economics, you'll never make less than $100,000 a year. And you'll probably retire with more money than you'll ever need by the time you're 35. And so that's a huge priority about Afrofuturism as applied through the tools of social science and history, different hard sciences, is that we can physically transform the way that we understand our world to our own material benefit, and not just individually, but collectively. That's what Afrofuturism in my day-to-day life does.
Excellent. If you yourself as an artist, what's the transformative power you see as it relates to others?
Yeah, fantastic question. So there's an aspect that I specifically deal with that is visual Afrofuturism.
Gotcha.
It's an aspect of it that employs the visual, whether it be a moving image, whether it be a still image or sequential images. And the way I think it will affect the world in terms of its possibility is the image itself, the drawn or illustrated image or fabricated image, what have you. It's all about blueprints. It's all about showing something that does not exist in reality, right? But you're visualizing the speculative. And I mean, again, I come back to this place, right? It's like, film built this place. That's what it did. Now, I don't know all the intricacies of it, but it literally built it because it showed possibility. And then from that possibility, it took me a long time to finish stuff. I couldn't finish anything until there came a point where I had to okay, let's start paying attention to people who finish. And that's what the Afrofuturist modality, and I'm using Afrofuturism, that term, because that's what we're using now, but we're just talking about, the Black Arts Movement, to an extent. It's not like this is new.
Right.
It's just that, in my wing of it, I just put spaceships in it. So it's not, but that's, again, I go back to this place. It's like showing possibility in the image, in the written narrative married with the visual narrative. That's all it is. So that's not unique. But that's what it is. It's about showing possibility. That's why these people are absolutely losing their minds. Because, this is not the nicest thing to say, but it's like living through an episode, real life of The Walking Dead. You are literally seeing transform in front of you a multiracial society. Whether you like it or not, there's nothing you can do about it. And it's how does it get to that point? Because we live, we continue to live, we continue to grow and expand, and that's what it's all about, the possibility. But most people have difficulty seeing possibility unless they can see it. And that's why, in my sector, I feel like there's just so much where we're going, so much to do, but man, we've come such a long way.
Right. Excellent. And now when we get to the book, and thank you for those answers. How does this book happen in terms of, its origin, and how do you two come together to put this book together?
So this was almost 10 years ago. We met in Jackson.
Planet Deep South in Jackson, Mississippi. Okay, well, I'll start with that. So Planet Deep South is this brother, Rico Chapman, and John Jennings, who actually has one of the books up there on the shelf, the Kendrick adaptation. And I think from his Megascope line of graphic novels. But they decided to do I guess, what would you call it, a symposium on Afrofuturist studies and modalities, but they did it in Jackson, Mississippi, at Jackson State University. But what was weird was we had Afrofuturists from all over the planet converged on that one space. So it was like 50 of us, all in one place. And the thing that made it's one or two things that happened before, but the thing that made this important was that it was all over, but there was a southern component that wasn't as visible and as present in other studies. It was mostly the usual players who are great, but this had that southern component to it. So Walter was there, and I was there with my book, Maddie's Rocket, which at the time was just a comic book, wasn't even a graphic novel at that time. And we met a bunch of people, and I didn't think anything of it other than Walter is a good guy. But then you cut to 6 or 7 years later, and December of 2022, and he calls me out of the group. Hey Tim, what's up, man? How's it going? I'm like, hey Walter, what's happening? Thinking, do I owe you money? Am I good? And he says, look, he's been working with the New York City Department of Education. And they have this group called the Civics for All group to the New York City Department of Education. And he said, would you be willing to draw this hip hop comic? Talking about the history of it. And I was like, yes. And my wife got upset. Well, why did you say yes so fast? Because I knew. But that started as a 24-page comic, with front and back, and it was like 31 pages. But 100,000 copies were printed and distributed directly into the bloodstream of the New York City school system. And it just exploded. It was so, I've never had $100,000 of anything. I might have $100,000 of debt, but I've never had $100,000 of value. And it blew up. It really hit on social media. And Walt and I found ourselves being assaulted by elementary school kids because they were so rabid about it. And with our partner, Christina, I know where's that? Hey, raise your hands, girl. We banded together and we created the Graphic History Company that specializes in creating histories within the graphic novel medium. And 4 months ago it didn't exist, And, you know, now it's here, and, you know, I'm at the Metropolitan Museum of Art on Sunday, doing more drawing exercise, but showing the graphic history of hip hop. Is it insanity or just surreal? Surreal is the right word. It's surreal. Surreal. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers you. Oh, I left a step out. I'm sorry.
So I want to say 2-3 years ago, Ronaldo Anderson.
Oh, right. I left a step out.
Yes, he brought us in on a workshop with the U.S. Air Force and a group of their consultants called N Square on how to reduce nuclear weapons around the world. And they were just basically talking with Afrofuturists about imagining a more peaceful and safer future. What would it take to kind of get the world to say we don't need nuclear weapons anymore? Right. And so in the course of that conversation, I think I was assigned 2 topics. How do we educate in an Afrofuturist way? And then how do we feed the world using Afrofuturist ideas? And as we worked out the proposal as words, Tim was just listening really carefully and kind of just sketching ideas. And at the end of the meeting, he drops these 2 images that he had created in less than really like an hour, maybe a little over an hour, but it wasn't a whole lot of time. But he made these pictures about a virtual reality classroom with a giant hologram in the middle. And everybody has a 3D interactive station at their chair in an auditorium. This ended up being used a year later by Meta to launch their Oculus ad. And so like this stuff about what comes out of his mind and how he visualizes what people say and write, it's just spectacular. The Afrofuturist agriculture, it was like with these giant, what we think of as the turbines that provide electricity with wind power, except it was distributing water over vast territory that you could actually produce much more food with much less space. And so he was, again, making people see a future that doesn't exist based on the way we were taking Afrofuturism into policy areas. And so I saw him do this, and I was like, oh no. The next time I have something, this is the first call I'm making. Right. And so, yeah, New York City had come to me. We had done probably 2 years of work together creating curriculum. But they said, is it possible? They literally said the phrase, is it possible to do a graphic novel about the history of hip hop? And
not in one volume. It's impossible to do in one volume.
But yeah, that was the pitch. And I was like, I know who we can get. And my man delivered. Right. Just over the top. And so that was December. Scripts were done by April or May of the next year of 23. So the 50th anniversary was August. Okay. And so scripts were still in revision, and the art was under revision with review by the district. August, September. They started putting in the printing in October. And then that first floppy 24-page edition came out in November of 23. Right. And then we saw how everybody responded to it. And he's not joking when it's like kids bum rushes. Right. Like teachers too. And so we saw that we had done something that people really loved fundamentally on a lot of different levels. And then like it took another 4 or 5 months to expand out all the pages. Right.
Hold on, let me
90 page.
Let me interject. I got to interject. So this goes to Christina, who was, partnered with us, and keeps us, from going crazy. Thanks a lot for that. And she was the one, from my perspective, that kind of saved us. Because we had done that comic, but it was like, well, what are you going to do with it? Right. Right? And my thought was, well, I'll do another 10 pages. And we'll do it like that. 50 pages. Right. 40 pages. And that book was out, and people are downloading the version that's the 23 page for free. Right. And she said, they're giving away the farm. They're giving away the farm. And I was like, well, oh my God, they're giving away the farm. What are we going to do? Right? So we're on the phone, freaking out. And we're also getting the website right. So I go to this guy like, okay, Walt, what I need you to do is I need you to give me a timeline of hip hop history. Right. And I'm thinking for the website, I'm thinking about a decade. Right. Do the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, right? 5 entries. comes back with 46 years worth of hip hop history by the year.
Right.
Started in 1964 all the way to 2006. I'm like, looking at that, and thank God, I was like, there's no way this is going up on the website. This is a graphic novel.
Wow.
So from the end of November, starting from roughly December 1st, all the way till January 18th. I never forget because the transmission on that car went out the morning I finished on the way back from New Orleans. I finished an additional 61 pages, which brought it to 92 pages. And it saved us. It saved us. It really saved us. But it gave the company a focus that we knew was there, but it was like, how do you focus? What are we trying to do? But as I've said before, many times you heard me say, I know I'm like a broken record. Finishing activates opportunity. Oh my God. It's amazing what happens when you finish big things. When you finish big things, ideas and opportunities and avenues and venues that you couldn't have visualized before suddenly come into clarity. Even when you are not sure it's what you're looking at. And it's all because, I joke about it in a pitch, you can use it as a weapon. It's a hardcover, you know what I mean? Right? Wow, But that's what it means. So I think, I'm not a hip hop scholar.
Okay.
I'm a visual artist. I'm a visualist. But working with a visual, with an Afrofuturist who is a hip hop scholar, who doesn't ride me like a mule, oh my God, I can work.
Right.
And that's what it is.
So what is it about hip hop in particular where you felt that this was the medium, the music that you wanted to pursue? And what is it about hip hop? Because, this is at the forefront, and that's all folks are talking about. What is it that you feel like separates hip hop from other forms of music to where you get this kind of response with this?
Yeah, that's such an important question. And again, your genius in seeing is so perceptive. This piece for me, so I'm born a week after Cool Works Party. Okay. And so I literally grew up in a world where hip hop was emerging, right? And that piece, by the time I'm 5, I'm hearing the Sugar Hill Gang as a regular part of life. Kurt's Blow is part of my world. Houdini, transformative for me before I was even a teenager. And then, this is something I've never told anybody before. This is a brand new breaking focus. It's like my dad is very, very light. He passed away almost 2 years ago now. So God rest. And so he's very, very light and never knew his father, who was a darker African-American man in Western Massachusetts. And so he could have passed for white his whole life. He looks kind of like what De Niro looked like when they were both young. But he loved dark women. He loved black women. And so my mom is very dark. And when they got together, it was very much in the shadow of the loving decision. And so there's a lot of controversy. Everybody was like, what are you? I still get this stuff. Are you black? Are you Latino? Are you something else? And so there's this piece for him where, as I'm growing up, he's playing, I don't even know if y'all know this person, Anne Murray. He's a Canadian kind of like country singer. And that's one man with the flugelhorn. It's, oh goodness, I just blanked on his name. But yeah, it's a soft jazz was his thing, and big band. So as a kid, I'm listening to all this music from the 40s and 50s. Like Louis Armstrong was the most radical thing my dad would play for me.
Right.
And so hip hop comes on the scene and really breaks out. I want to say, first album I bought was Run DMC, King of Rock. Okay. And to have Jay on those beats and scratching, and for me it was DMC. It was Daryl. Right. That force, that voice. Right. It was just like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. UTFO dropped Roxanne. And I remember it was literally 83, 84, and I went back to school, and all the kids out of school were like, yo, what happened? Right. Hip hop had just taken over my life. And I was a kid, I had a horrible stutter as a kid. I had to go and get medical treatment to get over and be able to speak coherently. And learning rhymes, memorizing LL Cool J's first album, verse by verse, it just transformed the way I spoke, the way I thought. Students, for now, I've been teaching close to 40 years, one level or another. And they all say, like, you speak like you're rhyming, like there's an intensity to how you teach because hip hop infuses the way you think. And so I can't tell you across how many classes over time, the power of using hip hop to frame both the expression, the reflection, the way it then turns into all kinds of different applications, it absolutely changes the world. And we see this around the world where revolutionary movements are powered by hip hop expression. I remember when Mos Def dropped the song Auditorium with Slick Rick. That captures it. Slick Rick's verse in particular captures it so perfectly. He's talking about being a soldier and assigned to go occupy Iraq. And everybody's treating him terribly because he is an occupying soldier. But then, like, he sees guys on the corner getting down playing instruments, and he decides, I'm going to perform Lottie-Dottie with these jokers.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, they love him because they recognize that he's part of hip-hop, and they feel like they're part of hip-hop. And all of a sudden, it's no longer about the geopolitical struggle that's represented. He is no longer just a soldier in that uniform. There are no longer people with no hope and just kind of isolated. Like, there's a way that it moves beyond the boundaries that we know every day. And I can't tell you how many thousands, millions of experiences I've had where that exact moment happens and a young person's life has changed, any person's life has changed because hip hop taps into something. And it frustrates me because so many people see hip hop as Sean Combs, or they see it as all the death and the tragedy, Tupac and Biggie. They see it just as the superficial battle between Kendrick and Drake. They don't see the deep spirituality. I saw this amazing post today about Kendrick, who rhymes about his internal psychological struggles in his music. And he talks about the spirituality and how he takes negativity and transforms it into something positive in his life through his writing. And these are essential lessons about being a human being.
Right.
And hip hop lets us tap into that and lets us escape the boundaries that so many different layers of society try to trap us in. So that was my commitment in trying to do this in the book, having taught hip hop as a class for 30 years. I was like, how do I distill down into a set of pages the experience that you will connect to it, see yourself in a different light, and reach a different height of what you can accomplish as a result of what you have experienced in this text. And even among this genre of graphic history, which is growing really rapidly, I find other scholars, historians I talk to all the time, are much more consumed by, let me make sure all the dates are right, let me make sure I get all the names correct, let me make sure I talk about the process accurately. And it's not at all about the reader. That's the gift that we're given in this book. We're looking at the back cover of it right now, and it's got the figure of breakdancers in the city. And so that's the secret. That's the secret. Is our book is about the reader. It's about the person who is unnamed. People will see the portraits, but it's really about the people who made the entire culture explode and go global. And that's all of the hundreds of millions of people who just feel the culture, feel the music touch them.
Excellent. And as an artist, what's the challenge for you in bringing all of what was just stated, bringing it to life artistically, and also representing the artists themselves, these hip hop artists, accurately? What's the challenge for you there?
Well, I have to say this phrase, I haven't used it in a while, but I was drowning in rappers at one point. It was, I would imagine in this book, I've done 250 portraits of different operators in the hip hop space. And you know, we only went to 2006, so in the upcoming second and third volume, I gotta do it again, but now we're not just doing MCs, we're doing, you know, the visual arts in hip hop. So that's a whole nother thing. Then you gotta do all the journalists hip hop, right? And then you got to do all the filmmakers in hip hop, and we touched on that. But then you have different subsets of journalists, because those journalists, you have the big time journalists wherever they are, but then you have journalists who are major in their regions.
Yes.
So yeah, man, it's more drowning coming. So that has been the challenge, but you know, I don't know what's going to happen. I have some big opportunities that are coming my way, and you know, without going into it, whether this works or not, it was something that might happen to me, but it happened to me because people saw the book I did Infinitum,
Yes.
which is just fully rendered, you know, big epic. And there were times when, you know, it had been put to me, why are you putting all that effort into this? Why not just, you know, the audience isn't looking for that. And you know, my response was because the audience deserves epic stories. Black people deserve to see themselves in epic scenarios. If this happens, fine. If it doesn't, that's fine too. But they got in contact with me because of the epic.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So my job, nobody cares how I feel. Nobody cares whether I'm my health or whatever. He cares because you just take care of yourself, you know, and all that, and he's right. You know, which I got to do my walks and all that kind of thing. But that's the job. That's the job. Nobody's going to care how you were feeling 100 years from now. What they're going to care about is, did I properly render detailed possibility? Because detailed possibility is all about defining the path that we're moving in. That's my job as a visualist. It's not easy. It's very hard. It put me in the hospital in December, but I made it out, right? And there's nothing like being with tubes on you, and you're like, oh Lord. But the nursing staff is freaking out because everybody wants me to sign a copy of the damn book. So, but that was an important lesson for me. It's like not everybody is given that opportunity. I'm almost 58 years old. In the previous world, my career would have ended 10 years ago. I would have been put out to pasture. I've never been this busy in my entire life, career-wise, ever. And that comes because the challenge, nobody said it's easy. It's like, can you hit that mark? Can you hit it? Right? And if you don't hit it, it had very well better be the most spectacular failure possible. You know, your job is, people say, what is it, Yoda? You know, I do or do not. It's all about trying. It's all trying is all there is. You're trying your best to deliver quality because people deserve it, and somebody has to do the job.
Excellent. So in doing the research, and you're a hip hop scholar, you're a fan of the music.
Oh, God.
What did you learn that you didn't know? You know, like I'm sure there was a lot, but what like kind of stood out to you? Like, wow, I had no idea what this was.
Well, I you could say, but I'm just going to show you. So, for example, so in the first part of this book, no, hold the mic up because I'm going to show the book. So, for example, Walter starts it in 1964. All right, what happens? That's the Civil Rights Act, right? I feel like it's a story time here. So you got the Voting Rights Act in 1965. We said, well, what does that have to do with hip hop? So those events directly result in the deaths of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. Okay, what does that have to do with hip hop? 68, housing rights. Then you go into all the things that's happened with musically in the communities. But the brilliance of saying, let's move ahead here. 1972, Richard Nixon is reelected back into the presidency. And he became president because Kennedy was killed. Right? 1973, Cool Herc. But what happened that same year? Richard Nixon resigned. So hip hop is intertwined intimately into not just American history, but world. What's going on there? Whoa, I don't know who that is. Sorry about that. Hip hop is intertwined. How did that happen? Hip hop is intertwined. Totally messed up my flow there. I was about to make a dramatic point. Hip hop is intimately intimately intertwined with world geopolitical history. That's what I learned on this. And I mean, beyond the fact that you can't listen to a TV commercial without a hip hop jingle on it,
Right.
I'm saying it has morphed and disrupted entire societies. People who are not from the Bronx,
Right.
they're not from the States. They're in Europe. You got people who are literally fighting in Ukraine now. Their morning wake up routine is some hip hop song.
Right.
That's the world that hip hop generated.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And for yourself, what something that you learned that stood out for you?
Yeah, so that piece is really important because even though I've taught hip hop for 30 years, it was never as much about the social and political history that surrounded the art form and how I taught it. When I teach the classes, it's almost all about a concept called lyrical density. That when you're listening to an R&B song, just by the nature of singing, just a syllable can take up 3 or 4 seconds.
Right.
Whereas it's completely opposite in hip hop, where your breath control, you can squeeze a couple dozen words into a breath. And so that process is one thing to do instructionally. But then, the big thing I learned is what we were talking a little bit about today at the museum, is how powerful it is to imbue a love of reading and enthusiasm to read for anyone at any age when you do 3 things. You tap into their visuals, you use that visual sensibility. We go through the world and see things that shapes how we react, how we decide to carry ourselves. But then on top of that, or I should say underneath that, to put these stories about Nelson Mandela makes a really important appearance, just juxtaposed with Kwame Ture. And just a page like that is an enormously influential thing to make people think of questions they wouldn't otherwise ask. And so the visual tool to express parts of history that lead to liberation, that's huge. But it's all punctuated by music.
Right.
So the music is constantly driving the feeling and the sensibility. And so for me, I had taught that as theory in terms of media criticism for a lot of years, that I could show students what it was like to write an essay versus what it was like to cultivate and create an album or create a documentary film. But to then blend all 3 of those learning modes in a text, it has had a power that I underestimated, despite having studied it for many, many years.
Why, though?
But this is, Joe.
Well, no, I'm saying, well, okay, I'll say that, and then you can respond. The most powerful medium to communicate on the planet Earth, from my perspective, is film, right? And that's because you're talking about a moving image that has all of the dynamism of the written word, of animation. It's all in there, right? Even gaming, to me, doesn't hit the same way.
Right.
Because in games, it might feel interactive and it might feel like you can go on multiple paths, but having worked in the game industry, I can tell you those paths are defined. They are predetermined. So their free will is just an illusion in games. Which is not necessarily a bad or good thing. It just means that's what it is. Film on us, you're telling me a story. However, graphic novels, because you're talking about a long form, it's not small episodic thing. It's a long form storytelling. So you're getting a huge meal every time out, right? But it's when you're dealing with dense subject matter, not just straight entertainment, but you're dealing with history, you're dealing with dense subjects. I can't say I've seen obviously, prose have been fantastic, historical books, literature books, nonfiction books. But I don't know if I've ever seen anything that appears to be more powerful in its characteristics than graphic history.
Right.
You know, this dude here is one of the greatest academics on earth. He has reached more people with this freaking graphic novel, right? Than anything, because he's married his love of subject of research. All he need me to come in is make it look good and tell his story, right? And put my own story in there to the extent that I could, right? And now we've done something that has totally transformed. Look, man, I know, Infinite was great. It was awesome. Max Rocket, great. I love it. Critically acclaimed. Man, I didn't get the same response. That is not the case. That didn't happen. And that is, I'm sorry.
Is there a room to ask?
Please.
Too much bombing going on.
Please.
And I just want to make sure that it's reciprocated from,
Mhm.
two things I want to say. One, I congratulate all of you for the book.
Thank you.
Because I think it's very important to start something to finish.
We gotta hear you. We gotta hear you.
It's okay.
This is being recorded, so we wanna make sure the audience hears you.
Okay, well,
Oh, Lord. Go ahead, Hattie.
okay. So to me, the thing is I congratulate you. When for me, black folks finish books, film, I think it's a miracle. And it's because we know the turbulence. A lot of the black publishers who were the Afrofuturists in the 60s are closing down. And I'm not sure you guys are bringing the political, economic difficulty black people or black business is going now in America. For me, if I just listen to you guys, I should go and then check my bank. It would be full of a lot of money. As far as I'm concerned, it's good to put a break into something. To me, I think the book is very important, but it was also, we have to know that black young people, I've taught at Howard 43 years, have stopped reading. That's the fact.
Right.
That's why graphic novel came into the picture,
Yes.
to interest them. Would they read? And then black kids not reading is also connected to the hip hop culture that has political, progressive political aspect, but fascist aspect to it too. So hip hop is not just, you have to be very, I think to me, you have to be the duality of what we're facing with the hip hop culture. And that is what I think is missing in the discussion. If I just go from here, I myself should stop. I'm making a film on the runaway of black people, runaway. It's going to be 40 hours. I've been working 30 years. I'm finishing in 1935, Italian invasion of Ethiopia, finishing. I could not finish it because there's not money for black cinema that is initiated by black people, unless it's driving Miss Daisy initiated by white supremacist bank system or economic system. So for me, we proved Sankofa what we can do. We don't have to convince nobody. We did it.
Yes.
But at the same time, black capitalism did not exist to bail us out. We have to go back to the very plantation that caused that historical disaster. So for me, I'm just saying, I want to push your book. I'm going to be committed to it because I know what it means to finish. But the other part of it is the escapism going on. For me, for example, I'm praying someday before I die, a coup d'etat is made against hip hop because the African culture that transformed itself here in the Americas has always unseated dictatorship. Black music has always been unseated. That's an African tradition. This hip hop, 43 years as I knew it, at Howard, when I came in. Your brother was in it.
I know, he was there.
Okay.
Lit me up. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so to me, I'm praying for the day of the new aesthetics that black folks would forge to unseat hip hop as it exists now, so we can get diversified cultural expressions of black people, because that's the wealth of black people in America. is their innovation. But I feel, I know I'm aware of like the positive rappers. I'm aware of that. I don't know I know how much they're trying their best to really carve out a progressive aspect to it. But at the same time, the forces of capitalism, the profit making, has perverted the political jargon of hip hop. That's just to provoke some kind of discussion. Sorry, my brother there, the moderator. Sorry,
No. So let me respond to this. Then I'm gonna hand out. So Highly, I got a copy of it. It's probably paperback. I'm gonna give it to you before we leave. The very thing you're talking about, I know of which you speak. It has gotten me, it's gotten me in deep doo-doo trouble before, right? But you showed the way. You showed the way. And I'm telling you, the very thing, will hip-hop be replaced? It doesn't have to be. That thing that runs alongside it is called Afrofuturism. It's here. It wouldn't exist if you had not told and taught and rode people like a mule, and I was one of them, right? How to engage the system and show them to create visuals, music, movement with possibility. Yes, I know it takes a long time. It takes 40 years. I'm sorry about that. But I'm telling you, you succeeded at your task. I finished Infinitum because I came here in 2013. Take care, ladies. Love you both. I came here in 2013. You had me up there in Howard, right? And I saw what you were trying to do. You were showing about possibility. But what I learned from that was I can no longer continue to teach other people how to do it. I need to finish my own stuff. You understand? So I'm telling you, this book, is it perfect? No, I did it, so it's totally imperfect. But what I am saying to you is that the very realistic look at hip hop that's kind of unfurnished, this is that book. I'm telling you. That's one. And two, I'm gonna say this, man. You're a hard act to follow, man. It's not everybody can make a movie, multiple movies. You have a 50-year career, man. Most people, they're lucky if they do a script. You got multiple movies. So when me and my twin brother are talking about you, we're like, how do we do that, man? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I get it, yes, but good job. That's what I can tell you. I'm sorry I had to say that because I didn't want you to think that.
Before you go, behind you is that's your brother's.
I know it is.
It costs, it's about $50,000 estimated.
I know.
I'm trying to see if I should sell it, put it in my movie. Don't tell him that.
I bet that, oh my God.
Sorry, my brother.
Just in case y'all don't know, his student, his protege, really, is my oldest brother. So I've known about this guy since 1978. Since I was, what's before teenage, what do you call him, a tween? No, I was 8, 9. So yeah, this guy is you wouldn't have a Bradford Young, you wouldn't have an Arthur Jacob, you wouldn't have Malik Saeed, you wouldn't have an Ernest Dickerson without this guy. And as a result, his work, because I don't know the lenses, but I can make the drawings look great. I'm taking from what he said, what he had to do 50 years ago, and I'm trying to deploy it through digital technology. And it is not easy, but it has to be done because that's the job. I'm sorry, I had to say that.
So there's so much to get into, but I'm going to start on one thing again to just add my voice in thanks for this space and for this life work. The word itself, Sankofa, was alien to this entire continent before your work. And on a daily basis, I see people liberated by the word, let alone the film that grows from it. The notion, Rashida Phillips is working for Policy Link, another Afrofuturist. We had a conversation 5 years ago about the notion that time is fluid, that the way we construct time is not the way we've been conditioned to see it. on a watch that tells us when to wake up and when to go to bed, and a 24-hour day and a 12-month year. Your film, the concept of Sankofa, that lets us see who we were before, and not over any specific time, across time, and see who we might be, looking forward outside of time. It is a fundamental aspect of liberation that I teach all the time because of the work that you're doing. And again, it frees not just people of the African diaspora, it frees humans. People have more freedom because they're less trapped by the empire, by the imperial assumption. And so just to say thank you is an extraordinary moment in my life. Second, on the real mechanical level, what you're asking for is the entire point of volume 2. So our students reacted to this book and said, okay, you stop at 2006 with Nas's song, Hip Hop is Dead. And this is a kind of imperative because as a historian, there are penalties for studying the present. There's an entire condemnation that people use professionally that say your work is too presentist, that you are focused on the existing world and not on honestly representing the past. I have historians, particularly Chinese historians, who say there is no American history because it's still too young. Look back 1,000 years from now, and perhaps we'll have enough perspective to understand the Western Hemisphere. So historians are very particular about what kind of past they construct and how they do it. And so we stopped at 06 because of that, my professional obligation. I'm already violating it by looking just at 50 years. But we knew when the students came up and they were like, where's Kendrick? Where's Drake? Where's Nicki? Like they were just coming at us because that's all they know. They're 10, 12, 15 years old. They want to connect, but they're not seeing the things that are most familiar. So volume 2 starts in 2023 and goes backward in time to 2006. And all of my scholarly educators, partners, you can't go backwards in time. You gotta go, the timeline only goes one. I'm like, no. Time moves the way we want it to move. And if we have young people coming to me saying they want this, we will start with the kids that 23 is their earliest memory. And then they'll get to see themselves and their older brothers and siblings and cousins as they look back to 2006. So that's volume 2. Volume 3 does a bigger deal where we take hip hop voices to look at the entire history of music and human life. So it's going to cover like 5,000 years.
And I gotta draw that.
Yes.
I gotta draw that. There's no point, there's no composed shot,
Right.
point and click with a lens. No, I was about to do some things. I gotta draw all that.
Right.
You understand? So, but that's the job.
Yeah.
And it's not easy and whatever. I didn't learn to finish things till later, right? I just did a metric ton of concept design.
Right.
But when I found out that you take that concept design and take it to its non-linear end to a finished product, that's when all sorts of possibilities become manageable, right? So I'm saying that I would rather have, in the time I have left, I don't know, I could be dead 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, but I'm almost 58. I'd rather have 10 kick-ass books that make a statement than 50 mediocre books. You understand?
Gotcha.
Quantity has its place,
Right.
but quality will always make you float to the surface, man.
Right.
It'll save you every time.
Right. So in talking about
Let me get
kids,
one more thing.
yes.
In this edition, so I talk about what's coming next, but in this edition, we had some really heated conversations, not between us, but between the districts and the educators who are going to use it. Africa Bambaataa featured. This is a hard choice. This man has been revealed to have been a predator and a threat to vulnerable people, but we got to grapple with that. This is not a rose-tinted vision. They made us take a page out that talked about Kanye West.
In
the
the
school
24
edition.
page, but in this version, he back in there.
Yes. Kanye West, again, the nuance, the complexity of grappling with him in this context. It's not fun to put him in here and engage with that. That's poison. That is genocide made manifest for profit. It's the worst piece of it. And so to grapple with these controversies, these questions, that's what we're doing. And we take positions. You can see in the art, in the writing, the kinds of positions that we take. But it is always towards liberation, towards the celebration of what's possible, and the condemnation of what demeans us or can destroy us.
All right, now, 2004, it's story time again. So with this one, this was the page of Kanye West. However, because it's graphic history, what no one knows is my oldest brother directed a Kanye West video. And these were concept designs that were used, that were produced for the video that he never used. So I said, they're going in the book. So this guy clearly has some issues. So it has one where he's smiling, and the other one with the, you know how he does that little, I don't know what is going on with him, dude. But in the middle, who's there? It's his mother. Because the moment his mom was gone, he was unmoored. It's all about taking what this guy wrote and trying your best to try to have courage to deal with the unpleasantness. Do you know what I mean? It's about taking on the I'm sorry, we've never had this kind of conversation before. Jesus Christ, what y'all doing to us, man? It was supposed to be fluff, man. It's supposed to be a light interview, man. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
And this kind of leads to what I want to ask you next. I'm a big believer that when folks create something, no matter how big or how small, there's something of themselves in it. And let's say no one gets an opportunity to meet you. Okay? They see the interview, whatever, they don't get a chance to talk to you. What can they learn about you from this book?
You going on, right?
Wow. So, I mean, yeah, they wouldn't have gotten this unless I put this out here. So the reason why hip hop is so central to me, that shows up throughout the book, and Tim has made reference to it in other presentations we've done, is that it helped me survive in a world where I didn't feel like I belonged. And so, you know, I was in church 5 days a week growing up. Like my family, 3 different churches. It was a Baptist in the morning, Methodist around noontime, and then I hit the Pentecostal church at night.
Jeez.
And so church was just, it wasn't a question. It was just the reality of what I had to swim in. But the levels of contradictions, the way that people misrepresent their faith or distort the way the things in the scripture is taught, sent me on a journey to learn about all world religions for almost 15 years. And so that is a kind of subtext throughout about kind of where purpose comes from. And so purpose is a huge piece that went into the script that then was brilliantly illustrated by Tim. As you look at the portraits, it's almost like you're seeing different facets of a diamond about purpose. They're so passionate when you see the portraits. You can feel the person that's being represented, and that's because of the combination of the writing and the image. The other piece is that, you know, like I spent so many years committed to lyricism. And so if you're listening to the music that's represented in the book as you go through and read it, it is this experience that's kind of surreal. Like to listen to James Brown, The Big Payback, as you're reading that page where you're learning about how the Klan became the White Citizens Council. Like, There's just a moment in that late 60s, early 70s movement that sets the tone for why Nixon wins in 68 and 72. Like, and it's not just the big payback about the assertion of Black power. It's the big payback about how all these white nationalists were building the prison industrial complex. How they were putting together a war on drugs to destroy Black communities. And so the layers of what's happening with James's words, and you hear him say that the way he says it, you're reliving that moment. And for people who never lived through it, there's just an intense depth to it. And so for me, that was the piece about choosing lyrics. If you're thinking about what's actually in each performance, as you hit it, going through the story, you're definitely getting not just the purpose, but the passion that people kind of have grounded in themselves and the way it comes through the music.
Gotcha. And what do we learn about you through the?
Oh, wow. I would hope that a person looks at that book or any of my books. This book was really particularly challenging because it wasn't unambiguous Afrofuturism.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If I got something, I could always blow something up or put a spaceship fleet in there. You know, I could always, this one, there was no such escape. And this book has made me a better artist. It has disrupted what I had become comfortable with, which is very hard to do, you know. But I would hope that a person would look at this book and know that I left 150% on the field. You know, not saying that all of it was successful. I look at it and I see something. You know, I'm not one of those people that look at something and I see everything that's wrong. I don't do that. Sometimes I think I do, but I really don't do that because I know what went into it just to do what's there. What I'm hoping a person will look at and see is that it's going to sound weird, but I'm a professional.
Gotcha.
I was told, but I'm going into names, that I probably shouldn't do this because I have a very complicated relationship with hip hop. There's a lot of things you were saying, Hailey. It's not. I can't say that, man. We're trying to sell these books, man. We're trying to sell the books, okay? So there's certain things I cannot and will not say because they don't have to be said because I said everything in the book.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
Yes, Kanye West has many, many issues.
Right.
But man, don't he look good on those pages?
Right.
He looked great. And his mom, I know his love for his mother was so powerful. I'm like, I'm gonna make this woman like an angel.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? I'm hoping people see that. I mean, so much to learn, so much to do, but I take my craft very seriously. That's what I'm hoping that they take.
Excellent. And I do want to hear from folks in the audience as well, but I just wanted to ask this question. I'm a big believer that folks in power recognize threats to their power before the threat recognizes itself. I don't know that when folks were creating hip hop, that they really knew what they had. It was just like, I'm having fun with this, I want to tell these stories, so on and so forth, through these parties. Now that it's out there, it has all this power, it has all this potential. In many ways being taken and being repackaged, sold back to us to do things that it was not designed to do. And many have argued this to the point that it's starting to do more harm than good, cut like a double-edged sword. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely generational. So the fact that we're hitting 50 years of hip hop, and I know for me, it was when Guru from Gangstar died early, almost a decade ago. I was like, oh, this story is about to change.
Right.
And so I look a lot at what's happening internationally with Afro beats and the way that culture grounded in the continent is beginning to change and take these things in different directions. I see tremendous optimism in the possibility for what goes there. But we're still living with neocolonialism, this sense of American empire that is struggling, whether you look at Gaza or Ukraine or any place else in Central Africa. These pieces, where I talk a lot about we're in a moment that I call counter-convergence. So from 99 until 2016, we were in a moment of convergence where the internet destabilized the way the global system operated. And so that's why you get the emergence of a Facebook, the emergence of a Google, Tesla. All these new companies that have become the largest firms in the world come out of convergence, which is there's a consolidation of what had been the old industrial capitalist system into these new digital forms. Once they got big enough, and Elon Musk is a great example, so is Jeff Bezos, of then saying, we're not going to allow all of these different structures to allow the kind of freedom that happened before 2016. And so you get Brexit, you get the Trump campaign, you get all these efforts around the world to stomp on the emergent forms of freedom. That's what counterconvergence is. And what we're doing, hip hop has become a weapon of counterconvergence, is to take the voice away from the people at the grassroots who are then organizing and trying to press back. We're right in the middle of that struggle right now about, is this a choice between Biden and Trump? No, this is a choice between our worst selves and our best selves, and how we seize power for ourselves in the next 6 to 12 months so that we return to a structure that actually provides us more freedom and more opportunity. And so that's the vision I'm pursuing. Hip hop, it's not going to be what it was in its first 15 years that leads up to this kind of golden moment when you get MC Lyte and Rakim and Big Daddy Kane and Public Enemy and KRS-One. Like, that moment was its moment then. That's what let us try to capture some of that. But what youth are doing now is going to be theirs. And it's our job to shepherd, empower, uplift the freedoms that they create for us. And so, coming from a place where both of my parents have died in the last 5 years, and I have a 21-year-old and a 13-year-old who I'm trying to shepherd, I'm very clear on lifting up their power and helping them make the best decisions that they can going into young adulthood, because what they can create will be far beyond whatever I have left to give.
What are your thoughts on hip hop cutting like a better sword?
It does.
Right.
It cuts deep, and I'm not as worried about it.
Okay.
And I know that prior to this book, I wouldn't have said that. I would have been very concerned.
Right.
Now I'm not as concerned about it, because each movement has its time, as this fly disrupts me. Each movement has its time. What I am much more interested in, because hip hop is interesting where the form was there, but the scholarship didn't come till 30 years in. Afrofuturism, however, right? Before it broke out into the mainstream in 2018, it had already had 10, 20 years worth of scholarship done before that. And the scholars were all Black, with the exception of one or two, right? So when a forum like that is on CBS Morning News last Sunday, covering a show that I'm in, right? And the primary person who's talking is the guy who formed Planet Deep South, right? We're all part of that Afrofuturist community. I think we're doing all right, man. I'm good. I'm good. What will determine how effective it is the quality of the product. Can we continue to produce work that will move conversation forward, right? The reason why I love being a visual Afrofuturist, now he mentioned the thing with the Air Force, right? So I'll just say this one part. So there you had 40 Afrofuturists from all over the world who were on one Zoom call.
Right.
The people who were part of the think tank kept wanting us to come up with Afrofuturist solutions. This is what BSAM, the Black Speculative Arts Movement with Ronaldo Anderson. They kept wanting us to come up with ways to implement nuclear deterrence. But people stopped doing that. And so why are you guys not focused on it? Well, we're concerned if our kid is going to be killed walking out of the candy store getting some Skittles. Let's take care of that problem first, and then we can handle nuclear weapons, right? Which then made that firm go back and completely rethink. They changed their name, they come up with a new modality, because it's like, oh, yeah, I ain't got access to no nuclear weapons, man.
Right.
But I got a girl who lives in this town who's 30, and I want her to be okay. And I got 2 boys. Well, if a war breaks out, they're gonna be trying to send them in as cannon fodder. That's what I gotta worry about. Right? That's what I gotta worry about. So, how do I show them how to handle that? Hopefully, Lord, please, show it through the work. Right. Show it through the dedication to the work. And it's so hard. I'm behind on everything. It's so hard. But show them that whatever I do, I went in full heart, full head, full sight. And I went in. And now your job as my sons and as my daughter, imperfect as we all are, your job is now to go all in.
Gotcha. And I do want to open it up to folks in the audience if you guys have any questions. But I just want to say that I'm hoping through this work and this conversation, and other conversations like this that you guys are having, that this will, some of the way you just say you are inspired, that this will inspire other folks. And I'm talking about, I want to see, graphic history of the blues. I want to see graphic history of jazz and so forth.
Try to do the graphic history of Afrofuturism. That's next on the
I want to see, and for folks out there, pick up that baton and run with it.
A bit about the distribution, please.
Okay.
Oh, please.
Hold on. So,
Yep.
Excellent question. So, who here is familiar with Bertram Fitzgerald?
No.
Golden Legacy Comics?
Yes.
Golden Legacy Comics. Most people, their introduction, unless they were raised in a family that was activists, they had access to the material. But most people like me, it wasn't. Hey guys, which period though? This is civil rights period. Let's study about Martin. That didn't happen in the cotton field. What happened was we had a bunch of nuns at my school who just taught you regular math, arithmetic, that type of thing. Bertram Fitzgerald was from the Bronx. He passed away back in the early 2000s. Created a company where he got comic book artists to draw books on Harriet Tubman, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. So for many kids who came from challenging educational environments, that was our introduction to civil rights. Beyond the fact that our parents were right mixed in the middle of it because we were in Clarksville, Mississippi, right? You were in the Delta at some point, you were involved in the civil rights movement, right? So Bertram did his comics, but he didn't sell, he sold a little bit through bookstores. Right? We're talking about the 60s and the 70s. 80s, he had little issues with plates. But what made him radical? He owned his plates, his printing plates, and he made deals with Coca-Cola to distribute hundreds of thousands of copies of his book directly into the school systems, right? So what this company literally called the Graphic History Company, and it's a very creative name, I know, basically is following his model, and expanding it to where, yes, bookstores are part of it. There's a lot of road touring that we're doing now. That's why, Minnesota, Michigan, what was after Michigan? DC, had to go to DC. Then had to do New Orleans, and then, whatever. Atlanta, yes, I forgot about Atlanta. We didn't know. Brooklyn, right? And now this week we're back in DC. And then we got to do the Metropolitan Museum on Sunday. And then we got to go back to New Orleans the week after that. Then we got to go to San Diego Comic-Con. And then after that, in early August, we got to go to Houston, which just got hit by a tornado or a hurricane or something, right? So it's doing the necessary grassroots work to build and foster community with the network of bookstores that are out there, the network of interviewers and people who spread the word. That's the first thing. It's using our contacts within the mainstream media space. We got covered by CBS News twice. This is completely separate from last weekend's thing, which wasn't even about that, but we were indirectly in it, right? The opening shot of that piece, my damn quote is on the wall. I'm like, what the world is going on, right? So distribution is something where, and the intricacies of it, I'll leave that to Walter and Christina, who apparently left because she had to get back to Jersey. But we're building on what Fitzgerald did because he showed the way.
Yeah, there are three primary ways that folks get in, and the first one is based on what New York City did. They just printed a floppy comic and gave it away for free to everybody in the city of New York. So that's the basic model. A lot of school districts, a lot of states are coming at us to give to their students because the impact on literacy is so profound that the students are so excited to read this that they're willing to read anything so that they can get to read this. And so one of the CBS coverages was about a teacher in New York, and just having the book on her desk made them run to her classroom in ways they had never done before. And so that's number one. Number two is the standard retail, like we give a really substantial discount to outlets so that we basically don't make any money. If Sankofa were to sell copies, all the money's coming to the store. So like that's number two. We encourage folks to order because you get to keep a really healthy profit on each of those. And we want to have independent booksellers stronger as a result. Number three is the Golden Legacy model.
Hold on. Highly, what we trying to say, will you please carry our book here, man? Sorry, let's just be quiet.
Yeah, no,
we're interested because to me, I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, it's very, very important. Right. And I'm also I don't know my brother, I don't know you that
Walter.
much, but Walter. But this guy, I try to really plant him at Howard University because I know the importance of what he's fooling around with.
Yes,
yes. But again, it's another story. This book will be here, and I'm sure if you come back this way again, we want to do another. I think I'm just seeing him as I was walking in.
Yeah.
I would really, I feel very bad. I would have sponsored it better.
This was the last minute.
Yeah, it was the last minute.
Hold on.
Please, stop.
No. But I would want, in case you guys come this way again,
Highly,
we do a very important.
highly, what we need, okay, no, let me change that. What I am respectfully requesting, just tell us when, and we will make our way here, and it won't be something where we're just something, I mean, definitely you'll be back here. And you've seen me you brought me here before, man. You know, if I got a screen, I'm gonna draw people.
Okay.
You know I will do that.
Okay.
And it won't just be the books. I'll come here and I'll draw people on the big screen. And you can just not sell our books, you can sell a bunch of books of all kinds, because it's fun. All we want to do is be able to vent and talk and have fun. This guy here can get a little juice of what he's doing, right? And I can drink more of this delicious smoothie here, right? You know, that's it. So I had to say that part. Just let's please have us back.
I will.
All right.
Pleasure.
All right.
The very last thing is we have three very large people who want to buy huge amounts of copies, 100,000, 200,000 copies, just to give away to free, particularly to international audiences. And so almost everything that we do is built around getting the maximum amount of people to have this experience at virtually no cost to themselves.
Excellent. Do we have any questions?
Let me say this. Highly,
Yeah,
what he just said.
I'm not going anywhere.
No. I'm just saying what he just said about what we're doing. I've never heard him go into detail like that with anything.
Thank you. Thank you, my brothers. Yes, sir.
All right, please, question. I'm gonna do an old school style.
Yeah,
Get up, pass that mic around.
Enjoyed it tremendously. So my question is, I had a million of them, but the one that rose to the top because we're talking about the future. And we are losing a generation of young people right now. And it's centered around a lot of things, a lot of it has to do with music. It's all intertwined with music. So my question is twofold. What would you do this as like a part one, or a part two, you say you didn't include the newer artists now. So how do you feel about the current genre and the music and the message behind the music now versus back in the day what you talked about before, okay? The graphic images, the music, the lyrics, all of the versus what you're hearing now with the music. And would that book look the same if you did it with like 2000, whenever you stop this one to current day, you said you wanted to include the newer generation hip hop artists, Megan Thee Stallion and Sexy Red and all these other characters, right? Would that book follow the same path or have the same impact, you think? So that's twofold question. How do you feel about the current music, hip hop now? And if you did a book, a part two of this book, would it be the same or look the same or have the same impact? Or how difficult or how easy would it be to do a part two of this book, given the current situation?
Yeah, so the struggle that Tim is currently in draft in volume 2 is the way I wrote the script. There's a very clear division across the entire script of very commercially successful hip hop versus folks who kind of maintain the aesthetics and the culture of it. And so this recent battle with Drake and Kendrick really just crystallized exactly what we had written. And so that's going to be one of the fulcrums of the book, is this notion of, do you respect the craft and the audience and the tradition that birthed hip hop, or is it just a way to make money? Are you a colleague or are you a colonizer? Is the way that Kendrick says it. And that's the piece. I can't wait to see the way he renders it. I'm very excited because I think people feel that, and the way that it's become more commercial. For me, that line kind of got crossed, I'll be very frank, with 50 Cent and In the Club, which is also in the first edition. But as that shift happened after the turn of the century, commercial just became dominant. And it was about sex and violence, and that beat swept away everything else that was trying to be communicated. 50th anniversary, the main conversation was what happened to the kind of Afrocentric political cultural hip hop. And you had MCs coming out and being very specific about they had recorded certain kinds of music beforehand, and then they were told when they went in they were going to record number 2. They're like, no, it's just drugs and guns. That's all you can rhyme about. That's all we're going to ask you for. That's all you're going to get paid for. And so that piece, my critique is very specific. Coming out of the area I come out of, it's one thing to do the kind of reporting about talking about realities in your community. It's another thing to kind of glorify destructive behavior, make a profit from it, and then live a certain high lifestyle because other people take it literally and destroy themselves with it. So that's I have a very strong critique of the way hip hop has evolved since like 2004, 2005. But then within that, that's the bottom half of all these pages. There are people who keep it real, who keep it right, and basically are still trying to defend the underlying principles that lead to a better life and a better community. Now, they don't have $400 million record deals, but they're committed to it based on their heart, based on their soul. And just bringing a spotlight to them is a big goal of that second volume.
Any thoughts on that, Tim?
Yeah, my answer isn't that complex. I have the advantage, like a cinematographer, of not having to carry the heavy load of the narrative, because that's where that's coming from. Now, my job is to add narrative, visual narrative, but my job is complex enough. I'll let him handle the heavy stuff. There you go, man.
All right. Good question, sir.
Hey y'all, my name is Ruquan. I just graduated from college. I went to Howard University Middle School. I went to Banneker. And,
Whoa. Banneker where?
right here.
Okay. I was thinking about to say Benjamin Banneker in Brooklyn. I'm sorry.
I hear some critiques about Ye, and I'm really interested in engaging in conversation about them. Because you guys say you're interested in ensuring that young people can connect with the work. We love Kanye, and we don't speak about Ye and Ye's not God, God is, but still we respect Ye despite all of the flaws. And the reason we respect Ye is because we feel like power and professionalism masks they're crazy, and Ye is just willing to let it be free. And you know, I went to Harvard, so I got to spend time around like really wealthy professors and really wealthy administrators and classmates who are also crazy, but they can pay for it to go away. I'm from the hood, where my dad sold crack in Oakland before he moved to go to Howard, and he's crazy, and so is my mom and my grandma, but also my friends can relate to that too. So I'm interested in. It seems like perhaps we're missing like the opportunity to discuss the potential for impact in the music game and the fashion game and culture. I just think we're leaving a lot of meat on the bone when you discuss Ye, because we didn't talk yet about, we discussed like how it's crazy or whatever, but we didn't talk about the multi-billion-dollar empire. We didn't talk about investing in building schools on his land and advocating for other black people to buy land. Those are all like concepts I read in these books in the same store. So I'm curious to hear us engage about Ye on those things.
All right. Brother, I respect how you feel. When we first did this book, Kanye only had a panel on one page, right? Because of his crazy, you know, there's a, I don't know there's a tremendous contingent of people in the Department of Education who have significant issues with Kanye West, right? So that battle we had to decide in the 24-page comic, was that a hill worth dying on? Meaning, are we willing to kill this project over Kanye and completely wipe out all of the work from people both obscure, who hadn't gotten as much light as they should have, all over Kanye? And we decided for that floppy coming, we're gonna let that one go. To try to restore the absolutely dominant effect this guy's had on the field, right? We made it a full page, right? We couldn't take it any further than that because there are so many other people to cover. It's like I know what we did was God's work, if you will. Because we covered so many people, but we still missed some folks, right? And after a point, I had to ask myself, are you willing to die over this? The answer is no. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the most beautiful one-page illustration I can do on this guy, just like I had done with multiple artists throughout, right? He'll be in the next one. He'll definitely be in the next one, but in this first one, that's what we had.
No, this is what I'm saying, like this process and there's layers. So volume 1, I'd like to say is comprehensive but not complete. It gives you a wide view of the evolution of hip hop over 50 years. But our first conversations, as soon as they were like, yo, what's going on? How do we deal with Kanye and this? Do we have to do it for the school kids? I was like, we need a whole book. We probably need 3 books on Kanye. Like, the way that man's life has evolved and the kind of struggles he's overcome, the kind of obstacles and the way he has been engaged by global media, you're not going to find a stronger advocate. I've taught 3 full courses just on Kanye as part of hip hop. You cannot ignore him in the 21st century. Like, he is a definitive figure in the way the culture evolved. And so to come at it, no, I feel you. I want the opportunity to engage every layer of it and not just not leave meat on the bone. I want to crack that joint open. I want to see the marrow. I want to get all of the elements out so we can actually have that conversation in great detail. Because it's going to be a conversation that outlives us. It's gonna go well beyond the end of this century, unpacking everything that he does. But that's the challenge. Like, we gotta get that first piece, and that's why we built a company. This isn't just about a book for school. This was about an entire genre and industry of presenting all of us in our complexity. And it's gonna go long beyond whatever Tim and I do.
Got time for one more question? Anyone? One more question? Please.
It's more of a comment. Thank you for your work. The first thing that I saw was Kanye, but the person next to Kanye was Doom. So thank you for that. I was, I'm a hip hop head, born and raised in Queens, 51 years old, and I was kind of, saying, what does these brothers know about hip hop, right? And as soon as you said your analysis of DMC and Jay, and then, your analysis of Mos Def with Slick Rick, I'm like, this brother is really sharp on it in terms of lyricism. So you enter hip hop through lyricism. So I just wanted to make that comment. And I love your brother's work. Especially Daughters of the Dust. So,
you know what I'm saying? You imagine growing up like that. Anyway, let me play this one thing for you. This is where our world is right now. And it's been that way. I know y'all probably can't see it, but this is what we've had to be contending with. That's what we've been dealing with. So it's a ride. It's been a ride. I love this brother. Definitely the most fruitful collaboration I've ever had in my creative life. And what a ride.
Thank you for the kind word. This is a beautiful thing to be here. Thank you.
It's a testament, to your work when you get that kind of response. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. Once again, my name is William Jones, and a shameless plug for myself. I do talks like these across DMV. It's called The Evening with Afrofuturists. And if you're interested in following and see more conversations, more creators like these two, check me out on Afrofuturism Network. And I also have a show called Into the Afroverse, which airs on radio, did air on the radio, and also airs on YouTube. It's called Into the Afroverse. So once again, gentlemen, I just want to thank you both for taking the time to come out and doing this great conversation. And I can't say it enough. Special thank you to Sankofa for Books for really just setting the helping us. Thank you so much. Any final words?
Yeah, I'll make a final word. Yeah. William Jones has gone out of his way. He's tried to get us here. I've been on the show individually before, but he's been patient with us over the course of a year to get us here to do this. And I think what this guy, I'm sorry I'm doing this, I have to bust you, bro. What he does is so important because it's really a collection of oral histories from the prime Afrofuturists of the day. And I believe in another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the work he's doing will be essential to our history and will provide that, that what do they call it? That that fluorescent history of where we came from, of where did we get here. I think your work is that important. I think it's hugely important that you continue to do it. I'm sorry, I had to say that. Thank you.
My last word is just, we got to stay connected, y'all, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or whatever system, email this. That's how I know about all these brothers' work, and we invite all y'all to bring your work, your ideas. That's the only way we grow and thrive. So please continue to share with us. This is lovely to be in community.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, man. Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Yes.